Like this or
Oh,
something.
there you go. I didn't see the lightning.
And it's hitting her though. So.
It's coming from her.
I'm very confused. Oh, so now I'm Palpatine. Okay. One other note, I meant to say something at the announcement time. But those of you who came in the front door may have noticed our new lights. So we want to thank Roxanne's dad, Mr. Barton, for taking care of that for us. They came over yesterday and replaced them, and they're on a photo cell, so they'll automatically turn on and off for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad.
So will you pray with and for me, please? Light of wisdom, open our hearts to grace and mercy. Teach us to be blessed. In all your names, amen. Blessed. Blessed is kind of an odd word. It's one of those that, when you say it more than a couple of times, you start thinking, am I saying that right? Am I spelling that right? Blessed. And I think of my late mother-in-law, ex-mother-in-law, she was a Virginian from the northern neck of rural Virginia on the Chesapeake Bay. And she had she had lots of sayings, lots of old sayings, but one of her double-edged comments was, bless his heart. Now, those of you who have been in the South know that saying really means the person needs some blessing. Really needs some blessing. That it's not meant to convey approval, right? Oh, bless his heart. She was saying in the Southern tradition of reverse meaning that something was wrong with that person. But blessed is also used in the Roman Catholic tradition to indicate that first step towards sainthood. Blessed so-and-so is on the track to be to sainthood. Need maybe a couple more miracles and the approval of the Pope, but they're on that path. They're recognized as a sacred person. So, the other way it's used sometimes is almost reflexively, without thinking about it. Oh, that's such a blessing, or one of my least favorites, I'm too blessed to be stressed. You can be stressed all the time, no matter how blessed you are,
Yeah.
right? So what does it mean to be blessed? What are these impossible standards that Jesus seems to be setting for his followers in this reading from Matthew? Well, when Jesus describes those who are blessed, the meek, the hungry for righteousness, the poor in spirit, he's offering a set of goals. That this is what we are to aim for, to be hungry for justice, to be merciful, to be peacemakers, to be pure in heart. Now, none of us can be all these things at once, or probably not even more than one at a time. Even that's pretty difficult. But there are goals. This is what we want to be. This is what we're aiming for. They are, as they say, aspirational. We don't expect and can't actually achieve all of them in this lifetime, or even some of them, especially not all of them, and certainly not more than one at a time, certainly not 100%. But the journey, the attempt, the work we do on ourselves and our attitudes and actions will get us closer. And that's the point. How many of us are or can be meek and pure and peacemakers and merciful all of the time, or even all at once, or even consistently, right? But we don't give up because it's difficult, if not impossible. The attempt is the thing. Trying to be that person is the point. And the prophet Micah actually said much the same thing, but in fewer words. Do justice, love mercy, live in fellowship with God. That's my paraphrase of the original translation. In other words, be in relationship with God. Be in fellowship with God. Walk humbly with God. You walk with someone you're friends with or a companion with, So most of the other blesseds come under one of those categories, don't they? Of being just, of loving mercy, of being in relationship with God. Those who love justice and hunger after righteousness, who are peacemakers, they are the ones who do justice and love mercy. When we mourn, when we feel oppressed and poor in spirit, when we are laughed at or insulted for what we believe or who we are, then we can lean on our relationship with God, who loves each one of us unconditionally. Now, I saw a blog post from an evangelical pastor this week talking about this passage. And it's bothered me all week because he said, of course it was he, said that Micah didn't mean social justice and didn't mean that we should forgive people who do bad things. I was, to put it mildly, astonished that someone could so misread the prophet Micah, and indeed so much of the Bible, to say that. God constantly calls on Israel to care for the widow and the orphan and the foreigner among them, remembering that they were foreigners, that they were oppressed. Jesus not only specifically said to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, give water to the thirsty, visit those who are sick and in prison, but in today's reading, Jesus says that those who do those things, who enact justice and love mercy, are blessed. That pastor's argument, such as it was that Paul told the early Christians to obey those set in authority over us, that to call for justice or mercy was an unacceptable criticism of authority. But in fact, Jesus' ministry was all about overturning the accepted authority, about speaking truth to power, as were the Hebrew Bible prophets like Micah and Isaiah and Amos. One of the reasons Jesus was crucified by the Romans was because he was seen as a threat to their authority. No, the prophets and Jesus very specifically did mean social justice. The marginalized people, the people who never get justice or a fair chance or healing or comfort or righteousness. It's a call to look beyond ourselves, to care for others in need, whether they need a place to live, a smile, a plate of food, encouraging conversation. And here's the thing. When we care for others, we are cared for in return. As many of you know, I have several pen pals, prison pen pals, people who are incarcerated, and I worry about them all the time because they are all LGBTQ, and prison is not a very safe place for them. So I worry about them, and prisons are dangerous places. But the thing is that they're worried about me too. They worry about me out here with so much that could happen to me. They always tell me to be safe, to watch out, to be careful. They encourage me too. It's not just a matter of worrying about my safety. He encourages me. He asks about the grant project, how that's going. He compliments my right. There's one of them in particular who loved, when he was on the outside, he loved to camp and fish. He wasn't into hunting so much, but just being out in nature. And it's something he really misses in the wintertime because they don't get much what's called patio time when they're out in the yard because the weather doesn't allow it. And so this is a really hard time of year for him. So I often will include an anecdote in my letter about when I was a kid. I did a lot of camping. So I would tell stories about, I often tell them stories about, those camping trips, funny things that happened, or a couple of transcendent moments being out in nature. And he appreciates those. He really does. He says, thank you for that. And he compliments my writing. It's not just the story that he likes, but the way that I write it. He's excited about the church's various activities, even though he's not really a churchgoer or a church person. You know, when I talk about, you know, our work at Share Food, Share Love, and our dances and the drag queen bingo, he's just so enthusiastic about it. He wants to know more and how it all went and so on. It's a two-way street. Actually, it's probably more like a four-way stop intersection because we give and receive, all of us, right? We are sometimes the one who speaks up for justice, and sometimes we're the one in need of justice. We don't do those things in expectation of that return. It simply happens. Those of you who have worked at the food pantry, or with the night ministry, or with youth, or children, or at beds, you know that that's how it works. You receive as much, if not more, than you give. We minister to others, and we are ministered to. And often it's in the same conversation. We can't do it all. Be meek and just and merciful and pure and peacemakers and so on, all at the same time. But we can do what we can do. Make our journey the work. Be the best that we can. Do the best that we can. Give support to those traveling with us and receive their encouragement. Do justice. Love mercy. And live in fellowship with God. Amen.
Amen.